Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, March 6th, 2023. I am Dave Biddle, flying solo on today's show. Spring has sprung, not technically, but the weather's nice here in Columbus, and spring ball kicks off tomorrow for the Buckeyes. So let's get into the biggest questions facing the Buckeyes this spring and really heading into the 2023 season. It's not like all the questions are going to get answered during spring, but hopefully we get a little closer to getting some answers to some of the serious questions. Before I get to that, just real quick to give you the media schedule, the first half hour, maybe 45 minutes are going to be open to the media tomorrow morning. Practice kicks off at 8:30 tomorrow morning. So that'll be cool. Maybe they'll throw us a bone and let us in there even longer than that. We'll see. Maybe we can talk Jerry Emig into that, although he's going by the orders of one Ryan Day. So we'll see what happens. But we will be there tomorrow morning. And then after practice, however long we get to watch practice, we will get a chance to speak with Ryan Day afterward. We'll get a chance to speak with Jim Knowles afterward and some players. We don't know which players yet. And then Thursday's practice, the second practice of spring, will also be open the first 30 minutes, 45 minutes or so. And then we're going to get Brian Hartline and some players after Thursday's practice. So what they do is they do the first two practices this week. They take next week off for spring break. They come back the following week. They start spring ball up again. They have the next 12 practices. And then the 15th practice, of course, is the spring game. So there you go. It's going to fly by. It starts tomorrow. 5 weeks in all, including the week they take off. 4 actual weeks of practice, including the spring game in mid-April. All right, so the biggest storylines, obviously quarterback's a huge storyline. That's obvious. We're not going to really know much this spring. I think Kyle McCord is going to trot out there as the starter, against Indiana for the opener. I know I'm not breaking news there. I think the year of experience is big. I just think, he's got to start under his belt. But I'm also high on Devin Brown. I think the future is very bright for him. So it's a legit competition. But I do think Kyle McCord is going to win that battle. But I don't think Ryan Day is going to tell us much. As I've talked about many times on the show, I mean, even when it was Justin Fields going up against, Chris Chuganoff and Gunnar Hoke, Ryan Day didn't tell us till I think maybe 2-3 weeks before the season opener. It was into preseason camp in 2019 before he mentioned Justin Fields was the starter. So when we all knew Justin Fields was the starter. And then even C.J. Stroud, in 2021, he didn't announce it. I can't even remember exactly when it was. It was sometime during camp. And we basically knew leaving spring. It just, we always talked about it. It felt like C.J. Stroud was going to be the guy. So don't look for Ryan Day to say anything to the media publicly, but maybe we'll get a good feel for it. We'll see. Certainly we're going to know someone's got to go out there and take the first reps. I think that's going to be Kyle McCord. And we'll see how they look. We'll see how much, if we get to see them actually go live during spring. Not that the quarterbacks will be able to get hit, but Student Appreciation Day, they always have a scrimmage there that everybody is live except the quarterbacks. So that's always a good way to get a gauge on how they look. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be fun to see how Kyle McCord and Devin Brown look this spring. All right, let's get to some other stuff. The second biggest thing to me is clearly the offensive line. I mean, you're losing 3 starters and 3 good ones too. I mean, you saw, and we'll talk about the NFL Combine a little bit later in today's show, but you're losing Paris Johnson, who could be the number 1 pick or number 1 offensive lineman off the board. If not, he'll be the second offensive lineman off the board, and measured well. Was listed at 6'6" at Ohio State. I always thought he looks more like 6'7" to me, without shoes on at the Combine, measured at 6'6.5". So Ohio State's one of those few schools that they don't really embellish the height and weight of their players. It really matches the Combine. And sometimes they like kind of shortchange their players. So anyway, you're losing Paris Johnson Jr. at left tackle. You're losing DeJuan Jones, who also is helping himself with his pre-draft stuff at right tackle. And then the surprise, at least in my book, mild surprise, Luke Whippler leaving at center. So losing both tackles and losing a center. I think Paris Johnson Jr., again, is going to be a first-round pick. We all know that. DeJuan Jones, second round at the worst. He's now getting some late first-round buzz. And then Luke Whippler, some people thinking he can be a second-round pick. I think probably third round. So you're losing 3 really good guys. Who are going to fill in for them? And, are we going to know by the end of spring? I think we're going to have a really good idea. And it's going to be intriguing tomorrow to see, who's taking the first team reps and where. I believe it's going to be Josh Fryer at left tackle. And then at right tackle, I think it's going to be a good battle between Zen Michalski and Tegra Shabola. So I'm going to be keeping a close eye on that right tackle battle. I think that's going to be a good one there. They liked Zen last year, was actually the backup left tackle behind Paris, but now I think he's going to shift over to right tackle. Not for sure. They could leave Zen at left tackle and then have Josh Fryer at right tackle. But I think the plan is to have Josh Fryer at left tackle. We'll find out tomorrow. And then to have Zen and then Tegra battle it out at right tackle. And I like both those guys. I like both those guys at right tackle. I think whoever emerges from that battle as the starter will be a good player. And then whoever, doesn't, can be that swing tackle, the sixth man, and maybe can even slide inside if it's Tegra. I don't think Zen's going to slide inside. He's every bit of 6'7", maybe closer to 6'8". So Zen's a tackle all the way. But Tegra could slide inside if he needs to. But they're going to give him a shot at that right tackle job, and I like that. And there's a shot, I guess, also that Josh Fryer could, move inside. But you have both guards coming back. There's really no reason for that. That's the good news. You have Donovan Jackson coming back, who I think is going to be a star now as a second-year starter, third-year player. I think Donovan Jackson's going to have a really good junior year. And then Matt Jones coming back for a sixth year. That's big at right guard. So we'll see what happens. And then center, to me, I'm going to be keeping a really close eye on that. Is it going to be Carson Hinsman as a redshirt freshman? Is it going to be the transfer from Louisiana Monroe, Vic Cutler? It's going to be one of those two. I mean, Jacob James is missing spring. Now, could he get back in the mix in the fall? Of course he could, but I think it's probably going to be Carson Hinsman or Vic Cutler, and I'm very curious to see how that's going to shake out. I really don't have a prediction there for you. I really like that they got Vic Cutler in the portal because at the very worst, he's going to be a great depth piece. If he's not the sixth man, let's say Tegra is the sixth man, at the very worst, Vic Cutler is going to be that seventh man, and he's a guy that can play all over the line, even though he's only 6'3", played left tackle at Louisiana Monroe, in addition to playing center, but most recently played left tackle. And again, that's not ideal to have a 6'3" left tackle, but it's not like he's 5'10". I mean, there's NFL teams that have starting tackles that are 6'4". So, we'll see what happens. But I like Vic Cutler as that, guy that can, at the very worst, be the backup center, backup both guard spots, backup, tackle if you need him to. So, and he could be the starting center. The thing that he's got over Carson Hinsman is starting experience at the D1 level. He's played a lot of games and against good competition too. Sun Belt's a good conference. It really is for a group of five conference. A Sun Belt is a good conference, and then he's played against big teams like Alabama and Texas, as you guys know. So I like that they have Vic Cutler, and I really like that they have Carson Hinsman because he was a high 4-star recruit out of Wisconsin, and it's tough to get a kid out of Wisconsin who's a good offensive lineman, but they were able to do that. So going to be keeping a close eye on the O-line for sure. And then just the defense overall, obviously the secondary, and what are they going to do to prevent big plays? And is Jim Knowles and Larry Johnson going to get on the same page? They're now publicly, they're not going to say anything that they're, not on the same page, but it's pretty clear to me, again, not breaking news here. It's pretty clear to all of you, I'm sure as well, that they have not been on the same page with certain things. I mean, clearly the rotation on the defensive line, I think it has been too deep, not the too deep. It's been TOO deep. It's been too deep on the D line. Jim Knowles' philosophy, starters are starters for a reason. Larry Johnson's philosophy is keep the guys fresh as much as possible. So I think they need, the best guys need to play unless they're gassed. JT Tuimoloau needs to be out there a lot. Mike Hall, Tyleik Williams. I've said this on past podcasts. J-Book and I were talking about this on Friday, so this is nothing new, but those guys need to be out there a lot, and then we'll see. I'm not ready to say Jack Sawyer needs to be out there all the time. He needs to prove it. But JT Tuimoloau, Mike Hall, Tyleik Williams, those guys need to be out there a lot unless they're hurt or gassed. And then, Caden Curry's a guy on the rise, Kenyatta Jackson, really curious about that. That's another thing I'm going to be keeping a close eye on. Some of these young guys on the rise, okay? Like we've been talking about Sonny Styles ad nauseum and for good reason. He has to be a starter this year somewhere, and I think he's going to be a star this year. Not like he's going to be a star next year. This year, I think Sonny Styles is going to be a star. We'll find out what position. We've talked about that a lot. I feel like we haven't talked about CJ Hicks enough, though. He's another guy. I don't think he has to be a starter because he's an outside linebacker and he'd have to beat out Steele Chambers. And I think Steele is going to be a starter this year as a fifth-year senior again. I thought he was a good, starter last year, and I think Steele's going to be the starter there. But CJ, I think maybe can mix in a little bit more this year. Maybe he can, find a different role for him. I think they got to find a role for CJ Hicks is my point, even if he's not technically a starter. So that's another guy. These sophomores, these guys that are second-year guys, Hero Canoe at D tackle, how's he going to look? Kenyatta Jackson at D end, Amari Abor at D end. As you guys know, I love Caden Curry, and I think this is a guy that reminds me a lot of Matt Finkus, and I don't just say that because they wear the number 92. I think he can be a guy that really breaks out, and and he could be the jack. We'll see about Mitchell Melton if he's healthy enough, but really looking forward to a lot of stuff on the defense. Is Knowles going to stick with this philosophy that 5 chunk plays or less is okay, or is it like maybe that's not okay in big games? Maybe that's not okay in big games. That's going to be okay against Indiana. You can give up 5 chunk plays against Indiana, who will probably be solid and beat Indiana. But, is that going to be your philosophy in Ann Arbor? Is that going to be your philosophy if you make the college football playoff again? I don't know. It's funny because I love an aggressive defense, but they were just they were over aggressive at bad times this past year. All right. So, and then again, is Knowles and Larry Johnson on the same page? That's another thing. We'll keep a close eye on that. That's not something we're really going to know till the season, though. So that's, for me to bring that up for spring, we're really not going to know till the season because they can talk all they want that this guy's going to play this much. We won't know until, my friend Dan Hope from 11 Warriors is doing snap counts, how many snaps they're exactly getting. There is the game participation thing too. That's never accurate. It's never accurate because the double numbers, they always get things confused. But we'll know after the Indiana game. We'll know. Are they doing this fire drill stuff again on the defensive line where everybody gets a trophy, revolving door, or is it going to be the best guys play? We'll know right away. Even though Indiana's it's not like they're like kicking off with Notre Dame again. They're not going to be messing around in a Big Ten game. Okay, we'll know. Has the philosophy changed? So that's when we'll know. We'll know against Indiana as far as this D-line rotation. What are they going to do? Are they going to change the philosophy there? Or are they going to stick with it? All right, I'm also looking forward to running backs, but it's really going to be 2 guys this spring. I'm looking forward to seeing, is Dallin Hayden, going to take that next step, and I really think he will. And then how does Chip Trayanum look? Because Travion Henderson's going to miss spring, as we know. Evan Pryor's going to miss spring. And then I would have to think Mayan Williams is going to, his reps will be limited, but he'll be out there. But I really want to see how Dallin Hayden looks and how Chip Trayanum looks. Chip's now a full-time running back, so that'll be interesting. And then another thing on offense, now we know the top wide receivers are set. So does it really matter who the 4th or 5th wide receiver is? I mean, if everybody stays healthy, no. But last year it took 1 game for the leading receiver to go down, Jackson Smith and Jigba, a guy I'm going to talk about in a minute when we talk about the combine. Now, if Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka and Julian Fleming all stay healthy, and Xavier Johnson more of that Swiss Army knife that can play a little running back, slot, do a little bit of everything. I love that he's coming back for a 6th year. Love that. Absolutely love that X is coming back. Other than if those guys stay healthy, does it really matter after that? No. I don't think it does, no matter what they say. Brian Hartline's pretty much proven, and it works. I mean, this is not a criticism. Hartline's fantastic. But it's proven. Just look at the last, since Hartline's taken over. I mean, if you're not in the top 3 or 4 guys, you're not going to play at wide receiver unless it's garbage time. So where does that leave Jaden Ballard? It leaves him on the outside looking in unless he can take a big step this spring. Maybe he can take a big step this spring and prove that he needs to be out there. I'll give an example, even though it's a different position. Usually they just use 2 running backs mostly, when the game's on the line. This past year, going into the season, they said they were going to make an exception to that rule because Evan Pryor deserved to play until he tore his ACL. But they were going to make room for Evan Pryor, is my point. So you can force your way in if you prove to the coaches, this guy has to play. Yeah, we usually only play 3 or 4 wideouts, but Jaden Ballard has to play because he's doing this. So we'll see. He's now entering his 3rd year, and, it's not sink or swim time by any means for Jaden Ballard. He redshirted. I've seen a lot of guys where, the light doesn't come on until late in their career. Good example like D. Miller, redshirted, didn't do anything really the next 2 years, and then as a 4th-year junior broke out and was a really good 2-year starter. And that's just one of many examples. So even if Jaden Ballard does not play a lot this year, please don't write him off because, they're not going to have Marvin Harrison Jr. the following year, probably not Emeka Egbuka either, probably not Julian Fleming. So could be 2024 when Jaden Ballard breaks out. But can he take that next step this spring will be interesting to follow. And then the young guys, guys like, Keon Grays, Kojo Antwi, all those guys, that were true freshmen last year. You look at like a Caleb Brown, Caleb Burton. I think, we'll see. I tend to think one of those guys will probably transfer after spring if I had to guess. But I also think one or two of those guys is going to step up and show. If not, he needs to play this year that the coaches are like, okay, this is a guy that's definitely in our plans for the future without a doubt, even if because they're stacked at wideout this year, if the guys stay healthy, because you got the best receiver in college football, Marvin Harrison Jr. You got Emeka Egbuka, who I think is underrated. Because of Marvin Harrison Jr., I think people overlook what Emeka did this past season. And he went over 1,000 yards as well, and I love him. I think his best football is still ahead of him. So, that's the reason. I mean, guys, if you're a Kojo Antwi, you could show out this spring and still not get on the field that much because of the guys ahead of you. But I'm curious to see which of these young receivers can step up this spring and show, okay, prove to Brian Hartline, prove to Ryan Day, this guy has to be on the field. We've got to find a role for this guy. All right, NFL Combine, who helped themselves? CJ Stroud helped himself. Telling you, if you can still get the odds, if you're a betting man or woman and you can still get the odds at plus 350 for CJ Stroud to be the number one pick, jump on that if it hasn't changed yet. It's probably changed by now. Bryce Young listed at 6 foot. We were just talking about how Ohio State lists their guys, what they are. What did Ohio State list CJ Stroud at? 6'3". What do you measure at the combine? 6'3". Bryce Young listed at 6 foot at Alabama, measures at 5'10" and 1/8. 5'10" and 1/8. And here's the entire list of quarterbacks that size that have succeeded in the NFL. You guys ready? Okay, I'm going to go. That's the entire list. 0. So listen, and Bryce Young, listen, he's a fantastic quarterback, college quarterback. Like, he's tough. He can throw the ball. He runs. I really think he's actually, I'd be okay if I was an NFL team taking him, like maybe, taking a flyer if I needed a quarterback. I'm trying to think of midway through the first round. That would even give me trepidation though, based on he would be the first one ever to succeed at that size. You're saying, what about Drew Brees? 6 foot tall. You're like, okay. It makes a difference though. When you're already that short, it makes a difference if then you go to 5'10", okay? And yeah, he got up to what, 204 pounds, but I mean, how much carb loading was he doing? There's no way he normally walks around at 204. Notice he didn't throw. CJ Stroud threw and put on a show. I'm telling you, if I had to bet, and maybe I already have, I don't even have to act like it's legal now. We don't have to pussyfoot around it. I think CJ Stroud's going to go number 1 overall, and I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'll put it that way. Plus 350, you're getting plus money on that. If you're an NFL team, you're sitting there. Let's say even going in, you were leaning Bryce Young. Now you see he measured even shorter than you expected. CJ Stroud measured, maybe you're thinking, well, Ohio State lists him at 6'3". Maybe he's more like 6'2". No, 6'3". Puts on a show, throwing the ball. Bryce Young not throwing the ball. That would give me some pause. What are you afraid of? Why are you not throwing the ball? So I think CJ Stroud's going to go number 1 overall. We'll see what happens. I love the NFL draft. It's for so many reasons. It's the best reality show on TV. It's the fusion of two of my favorite things in the world, which is college football and the NFL. It's fantastic. I cannot wait. April 27th through the 29th in Kansas City. Cannot wait. All right. So I thought Paris Johnson Jr. helped himself. Another guy, as I mentioned, listed at 6'6" at Ohio State, measures at 6'6.5" at the combine. DeJuan Jones is helping himself, measured 6'8.5", 270 plus. Zach Harrison didn't work out, which some people criticized him, but he measured well, which is no surprise to us. He's got the wingspan of a pterodactyl. Luke Whippler measured in good. I thought he might be one of those guys. I don't know why I thought this, because I say Ohio State lists their guys correctly. Luke Whippler was listed at 6'3", 300 at Ohio State, measures in at 6'3", 304 at the combine. So any chance, I think Luke Whippler might sneak into the second round. We'll see. I mean, that film against Georgia looks good. Okay, and Jackson Smith-Njigba, this really has nothing to do with the combine, but I want to put this out there. I think he's the safest pick in the draft. And I said this, I remember saying this about Joey Bosa. I remember saying this about Chris Olave last year. That doesn't mean he's going to end up being the best player in the draft, but if I need a wide receiver and I'm like the Houston Texans and I got my quarterback, let's say you're the Houston Texans and somebody is, takes Bryce Young number 1 and you get CJ Stroud 2 and then you get Jackson Smith-Njigba at 12. If you're Houston, you need a wide receiver. I'm taking Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think he's the safest pick in this draft. An extremely high floor and also a high ceiling. Maybe not the highest ceiling. He's not a freak or anything like that, but like he catches everything. We're all, recency bias with the hamstring. He didn't need surgery on it or anything. He's the safest pick in this draft. He is bust proof. Okay. Unless he has some catastrophic injury, which any player could have. So you take that out of the equation. JSN is bust proof. He is the safest pick in this draft. If I need a wide receiver, I'm not saying take him in the first 5 picks because that's reserved for freakish wide receivers. But I'm talking about if you need a wide receiver and you're picking anywhere from 12th to 16th or whatever, don't overthink it. Take JSN. Same thing I said about Olave last year. He's just the safest pick. Certain guys are just bust proof. All right, now the other 2 guys, Cam Brown and Rocket Hickman, I have no idea. I would guess Cam Brown. I mean, corners, teams need corners. He's a good-sized corner. He's fast. The tape does not maybe back this up, but I still think he'll be drafted in the 5th round, I'll say. 5th round for Cam Brown. I'll go 6th round, 7th round for Rocket. Undersized safety. We'll see how he does at pro day. Hopefully he tests well, but I tell you what, the guys that helped themselves the most, I think CJ Stroud, Paris Johnson, as if he needed to help himself, but if he did, Paris is going to, Paris interviewed well too. He's a great player and he's even a better young man, if you can believe that, as I'm sure most of you know. DeJuan Jones, again, I thought all those guys helped themselves. So we'll see, but appreciate you guys riding with me on this solo edition of the Bucknuts Morning 5. I am Dave Biddle. Again, practice tomorrow, going to be open to the media. Can't wait. Spring ball kicks off tomorrow. Thanks to all of you. Appreciate you guys very much for making this part of your morning. Can't thank you guys enough. Hope everyone has a great day.